Real talk, real impact, unfiltered and unapologetic. This is FemmeIcon.
Assalamu alaikum everybody. This is Mahvish Akhtar with another episode of FemmeIcon. So today we're talking about selfishness and the benefits of being selfish. Yeah. We'll wait for a few of you to join in before we go into more detail of this, but yeah, essentially that is our topic for today. Basically the benefits are mental, from our mental health, but of course whenever we talk about mental health it relates to our physical health. Anytime we're not under stress, anytime we're working on getting ourselves mentally healthy, mentally fit, mentally better, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect us. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid Shah. Physically, it will help us, be better physically as well, because our mental health and our physical health is connected for sure. So yeah, we're gonna wait for a few more people to join before we start this. I know that it is it's kind of a complicated topic, but it is a very important one. And I know that in psychological terms and in other social terms, it's been called healthy selfishness, because this selfishness is not tied to ignoring other people or hurting other. Well, ignoring is not the right word, because you might, we do have to do that in terms of to be selfish, right? In these terms, but it doesn't go as far as hurting other people. First, we're going to talk about happiness before we get into talking about selfishness, because selfishness, however we describe it, however we talk about it, it's the end goal is happiness, right? Whether it's temporary happiness or a permanent type of happiness. So yeah, so I see one or two more people. Okay. So the end goal is, to be happy. That's why we're selfish, because we want something that just giving and giving and giving is not going to get us. And then what we are learning now is that giving and doing for others is what ultimately makes us happy. And that's a fact. We know that, in terms of our religion, and then we know that in terms of, I'm going to need your glasses to read your comment, in terms of scientifically, that we are social animals. Let me see. I had a friend, Naval, who once said to the most selfish decision in life, that is deciding on who you're marrying. Exactly. That the most selfish decision in his life was to decide who you're marrying. Of course. And this is this kind of selfishness actually we're talking about, is to consider certain decisions that are going to affect your entire life, or even sometimes they're just, can be small decisions that you have to make those decisions, and you have to put others aside for a minute. And it's not about hurting others, and it's not about actively doing things that will be bad for others, but you have to put yourself first. The people you love matter. Other people matter. But you have to see what your priorities are. and consider those. So we have been taught to use the word selfishness in terms of just, oh, you're selfish, that means you don't care about other people. That means you are a terrible human being. So we'll go over this. First, we're going to talk about happiness, and we're going to talk about Adler's theory of happiness, because, I love how he describes happiness and how he considers what happiness is, and that will take us to, hopefully it will explain what selfishness, as Maz is saying, what selfishness is, and what kind of selfishness we're discussing right now. Again, I'm so sorry, I'm absolutely blind, and this one's a bit too far for me right now, the phone. And thus, in theory, shows that it is halal to be selfish in certain cases. There you go. So our talk is over, because Maz has summed it up. Basically, we can all go home, or I can go home, because I don't need to be doing this anymore, because he summed it up. And I had this whole thing, 11 pages. No, don't worry, it's not that long. All right. So yeah, that's it. That it is halal, and that is the point I was going to make, that religiously and, ethically and morally, you need to be selfish. Starting from big places. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going anywhere. You know me. I'm still going to keep talking. So, religiously, morally, and ethically, we need to be selfish in order to live healthy lives. And the point in the end that Elder will make himself is that people around us are happier if we are selfish. Because, like he pointed out, that if we are choosing, a person that we are happy with to marry, then we are not miserable in our everyday lives. And what does that do? That makes our parents happy. That makes, our kids, happier kids and healthier and more confident kids. So the whole family is happy, right? So it just makes for a better environment in the house, outside. We are more productive human beings because of it. So all these things add up. Now, let's get to, and because we're talking about happiness first, we're going to get to what happiness is, because again, what kind of selfishness we are talking about, because we are still not convinced that all selfishness is okay, because we are still trained that, if you're taking bigger life events and you talk about marriage, for instance, we are trained that, even if you don't like him, kya ho gaya? Or if you don't like her, kya ho gaya? Tumhari ammi abba ko zyada pata hai, koi baat nahi, Or if you end up marrying somebody that they didn't 100% approve of, it's a whole deal where your parents are, that you disapprove, you're marrying somebody your parents disapprove of. And I'm not saying pick a fight or go and elope. Thoda bahut bhi disagreement hota hai, so you have this guilt, right? And that comes from that part of yourself where you feel you were selfish. You didn't consider their feelings. So we're going to tackle that part. कि पहले तो हम उसको happiness को tackle करेंगे कि is your happiness more important in those instances? Should you consider their feelings more than your own in those instances? And ये happiness के criteria क्या है? और किस हद तक when we say कि लोगों की take care करने से और लोगों को making others happy, intrinsic जो आपकी वो feelings हैं, those make you happy. तो वो difference कहाँ पर आता है, right? So जो key उसके जो points हैं elders के, जो चीज़ें एक इंसान को happy makes a person happy, like in terms of, okay, this is now that person has achieved happiness, are overcoming inferiority, social belonging, social interests. Like if you have these 5 things, you are a complete person, and you are a content, happiness, basically content, a completely content person. You have the holistic approach about life. Okay, you are connected to your mind, your body, like your spiritual self, and your body is, you have connected yourself to your divine, your Allah, and your environment, and striving for goals, personal and social. So these are the 5 things. If you have these 5 things, Aldous says that आपकी happiness is complete. ठीक है ना? तो you are a happy person. Now अब इन 5 चीज़ों को achieve करने के लिए, is it possible कि you keep giving in? कि जो आपको जैसे भी कहे कि ये मुझे कर दो, नहीं ये छोड़ के मेरे पास आ जाओ, अच्छा आपको जॉब पे जाना है, लेकिन ज़रा पहले मेरा ये काम कर दो, चाहे जॉब पे लेट हो जाओ, चाहे बॉस नाराज होगा. Is it possible to keep being a giver and never take time out for yourself? Never say, no, I can't right now. Right? No matter who it is it possible to be that person constantly? And not ever be, politely, nicely, in whichever way. Is it possible to be that person? These are just things I'm going to keep throwing out there. And then we'll go to some kind of resolution, I guess. So, and a part of happiness is feeling useful, right? So many times what happens is we when we're doing things for others, जब हमारे पास ये 5 चीज़ें नहीं होती, या इनमें से 1, 2, 3 missing होती हैं, we start to fix other people's lives or do things for other people, trying to compensate. So fixing people's lives and doing things for others, and those compliments that we get, and the, oh, I need you in my life, and it's so great to have you, that's compensation for what's missing in our lives. So that's why you'll miss work, or you'll be late for your project, or come home late to your wife and children, because you're compensating for the things that are missing in your life that make you happy. And then why that happens is a very long story of, you have been doing this and your boundaries are messed up in the life that we've had, and that's a long story. So that's just an overview of, is it okay to be selfish at that point? And you've not been selfish, that's why you're here, where you have missed out on the key 5 happiness factors and components, and that's where we're at. So is it okay to be selfish in some of these things when you're not hurting the other person? जब आप दूसरे को तकलीफ नहीं दे रहे हैं, अगर वो आपसे पूछ रहे हैं तो आपने सिर्फ ये कहना कि यार अभी नहीं हो सकता, जब मेरे पास टाइम होगा. Right? What is wrong with that kind of selfishness? What is wrong with the kind of selfishness जिसको हम दूसरों को ट्रबल नहीं दे रहे हैं, दूसरों को परेशान नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अपने आप को we're putting ourselves first. अब हम थोड़ा सा selfishness को भी डिफाइन करेंगे, लेकिन हम पहले happiness को डिफाइन कर रहे हैं, because we need to be sure कि हमें पता है कि हमारी खुशी किस चीज़ में है, क्योंकि हमने ये कर लिया है कि हम अपनी खुशी को ही selfishness समझने लगे. ठीक है ना? Whenever we're talking about us being happy, us being fulfilled, उसी को हम समझते हैं कि this is somehow उसमें guilt शामिल होती है. Again, उसकी roots क्या हैं? Society, global society, whatever, parents, and हमारे साथ जो हम सबकॉन्टिनेंट के मुसलमान जो generations हैं, I feel like हम लोगों के साथ तो हमारे parents and grandparents got baggage with the separation and the migration and all of that. There's a lot of a lot of baggage from that, and then there's guilt with anything good that happens with us, and that a lot of that we should talk about that someday. I say that about a lot of things. We should talk about that someday, and we never get around to it. There's guilt for being happy. There's guilt of कि मुझे भी तो खुश होने का हक है, मुझे भी तो, because हमेशा हमें जब भी हम ये कहें कि यार हमारे पास तो कुछ, we don't get this or we don't get that, which is, there's complaining, and then there's legitimately wanting to be happy and trying to make it happen. उसमें हमेशा there's a, तुम्हारे पास किस चीज़ की कमी है? Why do you think you're lacking anything? You have this and you have this and you have this. Those might be things that other people see that we have, and we might have those things, but those might be things that other people want that we have in our life, right? Those might not be things that we want. So not to say that we should not be grateful for those things, but it's just to say that we should not be made to feel selfish or guilty for wanting something different, as long as we're not grateful for what we have. I mean, I have everything, alhamdulillah, that I could ever need. I do. But अगर मैं ये कहती हूँ कि यार मुझे, and I'm not going to name things because that's a slippery slope too, कि मुझे फला चीज़ चाहिए, या मैं सोचूं मुझे इस चीज़ की नीड है, मुझे पता नहीं था कि मुझे अब ये करना है, तो अब I'll be a little bit more, committed to getting this or trying this. और उसके लिए डिसिप्लिन चाहिए, बाउंड्रीज क्रिएट करनी है, लोगों को बताना पड़ेगा, मना करना पड़ेगा, whatever, what have you. You can't tell me that I'm being selfish or I should feel guilty because I have all these things and I shouldn't want this. But that is what we do. We put guilt on people. और फिर हमारी जो happiness का वो है कि हमें इस चीज़ से खुशी होती है. We shouldn't be excited and happy about something else because हमारे पास ये सब कुछ है, बल्कि हमें और कुछ अचीव करने में गिल्ट महसूस करनी चाहिए क्योंकि इतना कुछ है, अब हम और किसी की चीज़ के या किसी गोल के पीछे भाग रहे हैं. And that's selfish. और पॉइंट ये होता है, सोसाइटल पॉइंट, कि उसकी जगह सर्व पीपल, which if you're talking about general public, people who are in need and all of that, that's okay. But if you're talking about in the smaller sense of that, just people who you need to create boundaries from and such things, then that should be our call, not other people's call, right? All right. Now there's 3 kinds of authentic happiness जिन पे compromise नहीं हो सकता. These are all Adler's theories that I'm still working on. A pleasant life where you have, well, you just enjoy your life, whatever that may be, whatever that may look like for you. It could just be relaxing at home, watching movies. It could be going out and hanging out with friends, or whatever a pleasant life looks like for you. Your family के साथ घर रहना है, बाहर जाना है, friends के साथ, stay home by yourself, whatever hobbies हैं, जो भी है, that's एक वो component है. उसके बाद a good life with a job and a social circle and a place that you like living in, and वो जो सब चीज़ें जो एक important goals होते हैं आपके, और वो उन सब चीज़ों के साथ. So that's जो एक main important thing. So the pleasant life is the bottom, कि वो होना चाहिए, you have something to do and you're enjoying that. And उसके बाद a good life जिसमें आपकी, you have those goals and ambitions and जो और चीज़ें जो life को fulfill करती हैं pretty much. Fulfill in terms of more solid terms, not in terms of more in terms of just living day-to-day life, not even solid, but day-to-day life. Okay, you have day-to-day something to look forward to, basically. You have to eat, you have to socialize, you have to survive. We are social animals after all, right? So that kind of thing. Phir, on the top of this tier is a meaningful life. Now these two जो हैं, a pleasant life and a good life, are more, I would say more everybody has a set idea of what these are. If you ask me these, I can give you more of a objective answer to these. These are more objective in terms of I know. Okay, it may be answer may be different for everybody. सबका different वो होगा कि हाँ इससे ये मतलब है, लेकिन overall मुझे पता है कि क्या चीज़ें हो सकती हैं. ठीक है ना? Now when you come to a meaningful life, that is different for everybody. Right? It's a completely different thing. It could be spiritual for some people in nature. It could be absolutely tied down in people for other people, and for some people it may not be anything, right? They may say that there is no meaning to life. There's nothing to look forward to, so I'm just this is it. So happiness is, meaning of life becomes when it is the core principle, the core reason people are living and doing things, right? That's where selfishness becomes. So you're talking about happiness, you're talking about we have to achieve things. And then a meaningful life, a life where you can gain something beyond just having fun or a job or a family or having a social circle, getting your kids to school or getting yourself to school and then work and then all of that. You're living for something better than that, higher than that, and that is where your true happiness is. And how do you achieve that is different for everyone. And that is connected to the divine, or that's connected to nothing, or in between. Then उसके उन चीज़ों को cover करने के लिए उसमें से किसी एक जगह या हर जगह पे थोड़ा थोड़ा किसी लेवल पे selfishness fit in होती है. अब हम selfishness की completely उसको explore कर सकते हैं, because now we understand कि लोग selfish क्यों होते हैं. Now we know कि selfishness का purpose क्या है, और हमने उस एक word को लेके बिल्कुल एक negative वो कर दिया कि no, anybody who's even slightly selfish is a terrible human being. Now, question, do we have a right to be happy? Absolutely. Can we be selfish in the pursuit of happiness? Yes. लेकिन उसकी भी levels हैं, right? Can we hurt people while being selfish? Obviously not. Obviously not. But can we be selfish enough कि हमारी mental health stays intact? Can we be selfish enough कि we are happy even if it causes distress to other people? Now let me explain that just a little bit. Distress से ये मतलब है कि I make a decision about my life. A third person has nothing to do with it. They love me, they care about me, they're my family or they're my friend. They disagree with me. They give me suggestions, they give me ideas, I discuss it with them, but then I say, yeah, thank you very much. I'll make my decision and I make it. They're still against it. I still make a decision that they don't approve of, and I make it, and they're still against it, and they're upset with me. It is okay for me to make a decision that they dislike, or make it with the people that they dislike. That distress may make me selfish because I am making a decision with people, or going along with people they don't like. It may make me selfish. Doesn't make me a bad person. And that kind of distress is okay. And that's causing that kind of distress is okay, is what I mean. And that kind of selfishness is okay. Because now we're talking about little things, because that is the kind of situation we face in every day. Because if you analyze that situation, उसमें that person जो आपको कह रहा है कि no, this decision is wrong, और उन लोगों को मैं पसंद नहीं करता और वो लोग ठीक नहीं है, whatever they जो भी discussion हो रही है, उसमें जिनको distress cause हो रहा है, they're also being selfish. You see, उनका reaction भी ये हो सकता है कि no, you do what's best for you. That would be a selfless statement from those people. So, यहाँ पे my take in general has always been that human beings are innately selfish. That's just who we are. Of course, as long as we're not breaking Allah's laws and laws of the country and place that we're living in, I think it's okay to be a little bit selfish for your peace of mind and your mental and physical health. Now, we're not done here. Now, how do you become selfish? कैसी होती है? We're saying that selfishness is good for your mental health and this and that. What does it look like? Right? कैसे करें? How do we protect ourselves by being selfish? Again, healthy selfishness. Creating boundaries. And we talked about it. We talked about creating boundaries a little bit. How does that happen? How does that even happen? We'll discuss all of that in a minute. Along with creating boundaries, the first thing we have to do when we're trying to create boundaries is say no. We don't have to be mean about it. अगर असल में होता यही ना कि when हम जब selfishness की बात कर रहे हैं, तो पहली चीज़ जो जहन में आती है वो यही आती है कि बदतमीज़ होना पड़ेगा, और जो लोग selfish होते हैं वो बहुत बदतमीज़ होते हैं, right? If you're being selfish for your own reasons and to just get some peace of mind, to get clarity, to live a happy life and not to hurt people and not to just take from people, you don't have to be mean or rude or be hurtful. And saying no doesn't have to be mean or rude or hurtful. Obviously, creating boundaries and saying no is about putting yourself first, or putting your family first, or putting others that you care about first. Because a lot of times, it's about yourself. ठीक है ना? But many times, when you see the people you care about getting hurt, that also is stressful. So you just need to realize, look, I'm important. And the things and people that I care about are important. उसके लिए there's a lot of work that goes into it. You have to build your self-confidence. You have to build जैसे हमने पहले बात की कि शुरू में बिल्कुल बात की कि वो जो inferiority का एक है वो निकालना होता है कि I'm just as good as anybody else. मेरी needs भी उतनी ही important हैं जितनी उस बंदे की हैं जो मुझसे ये बार बार ये काम करवा रहा है, या जिसके लिए मैं समझ रही हूँ कि I have to stop everything and do what they're asking me to do. So wo cheezein, then you have to bring those up. Telling people when you have had enough. That's a part of putting yourself first. I can't do this anymore. Meri bas ho gayi. I'm overwhelmed, I'm overworked, or I'm tired, my mind is tired, I need a break from this. Again, you have to know that you're important enough to put yourself first. And this kind of selfishness is okay. I am just as important jitna wo dusra banda hai, jitna wo banda jo aapko samajh raha hai ki he or she can just come and ask you to do these things or come and dump their problems on you. That you are just as important enough. That your self-worth or your importance is not tied to this person or that person liking you or that person approving of you or that you deserve more. Recognizing that others are not making people recognize that they're not the only ones with problems. And that becomes key. Because when we don't speak up for ourselves, when we don't make others realize कि जो मसले वो हमारे ऊपर dump कर रहे हैं, whether they're physical or metaphorical or whatever, कि हमारे पास भी वही, we have the same issues. We are just not allowed to express them. We're just not allowed to have those issues. And when we try to talk about them, when we try to discuss them, then we're selfish. Right? Because we haven't in the past. So when we start to create boundaries and talk about these things, okay, no, I'm dealing with my issue right now. I can't with your issue. Right? Just like you can deal with your issue on your own, that person can deal with their issue on their own. So, when you do that, that's when for them, you become selfish. And so that realization, first, all of these things that we talked about, pehle wo aapko realize karna hai. कि you can do these things. And yes, you will be called selfish, but own it. You can deny it. You can say, no, I'm not being selfish, but you are. You are caring for yourself. You are putting yourself first. And that's okay. That is how it should be. Right? Because you want to be happy. And wanting to be happy is innately selfish. And that is a very natural need for everyone wanting to be happy. There is nothing wrong with that. Wanting stability in your mind and in your everyday life, absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, what is the meaning of the word selfish? I mean, we all know someone who thinks of themselves, and then the second part is with no care for others. Now, that's the part that bothers people, right? When they're called selfish, that's the part. But that's not it. I'm not doing this because I don't care for others. I'm doing it क्योंकि मुझे अपनी परवाह है, मुझे अपनी हेल्थ की कंसर्न है, अपने बच्चों की कंसर्न है, मेरा घर है, मुझे ये करना है और इसलिए या मेरी मेंटल हेल्थ ख़राब होती है या मुझे मुश्किल होती है या it's my life, I have to live it, whether it's big things or small things, right? So this is defined by society. Right? And we can go into the whole thing कि ये term जो है वो 17th century में coin हुई थी by Presbyterians, जो कि they are a sect of Christianity, and it came literally out of a sect of a religion which is based in guilt and making people feel bad about who they are. That's a very long discussion, and again, that would be a very fun topic to talk about. Not to put anybody down or any religion down, but that's the core of it. That's what it was about. People who are not serving their king, their supposed God, or not doing everything exactly as they're told, not breaking their backs, serving someone else other than themselves, taking care of themselves or or their families, people who are not serving that one, whichever higher power that they decide, that the church decided, or they decided, people in power decided, they're selfish. That they only care for themselves. If they ever said, can we have a glass of water? Can we take a break to eat? Or when are we getting food? Oh, you care for no one but yourself. You will have God's wrath. You were born a sinner. And what, in those days, I mean, you should go back and read that. I didn't read it in this context, but then when I heard that this word came from that time, and those were the people who made it up, it all made sense. But, so yeah. So, I wrote a discussion, but what was I saying? Lost my thought there. Anyways, so yeah, this word, it feels like was invented लोगों को guilt में रखने के लिए, लोगों को ये सिखाने के लिए कि you are born to serve, that you are born to be someone else's property or someone else's slave. So अगर आप उस चीज़ को इसमें से निकाल दें, and you just count the second part उसको निकाल दें, and you just count someone who thinks of themselves, it's not so bad. What's wrong with thinking of yourself? I feel like it's a good thing. You should consider yourself as a full human being and love yourself and care for yourself. I think that makes you a complete person. Right? C.S. Lewis, was a writer, a very famous one, said that selfish is a word, now in, and quote, stark contrast to being self-centered. So you see, I really like this quote in general about him, about this. It's the opposite of self-centered. So we don't like self-centered people. And then if you're putting this in contrast to that, iska opposite, self-centered is everybody who's just involved in himself, always thinks of himself. अब अगर आप selfish को इसके contrast में देख रहे हैं, इसके opposite में देख रहे हैं, कहने को तो ये दोनों चीजें एक सी हैं. You're always thinking about yourself. You're always, everything is just about you. You want everyone else to pay attention to you. You want everyone else to just shower you with love, and har cheez ka you want to be the center of attention all the time. That's what self-centered is, right? But यहाँ पे he says कि selfish is in contrast, stark contrast of selfish. So self-centered is not the same thing as selfish. A person who is selfish doesn't want attention. He doesn't want other people to admire them. They just want to be left alone. And we're not counting the other part. We're counting the part where we just want to be left alone. The people who are just the right amount of selfish, just be left alone, do their thing, and we don't want to hurt anybody. Okay, so I just want to go to talk about just a few things that we mentioned here, and just a few studies about happiness that we did, and how selfishness will play a role in this. All right. Research shows that mothers spend double the time with their kids than they did 50 years ago. And that's what not being selfish gets us. So another research in 2021 by Ohio State University, this was a marketing research actually, by Celine Malcock and Gabby, Rebecca Resnick, Mike Norton. They studied a whole group of undergrads, and so they were studying how many of these undergrads believe in leisure time and what associations they have with that. Okay, is it good to have a break and relax, and is it not? What associations did they have with that? They found that most of them. This is a very long study. I'm sorry, I didn't take all of it from it. You can go look it up. Most of them found that most of them thought that most found leisure to be wasteful, and their co-workers and mates to be selfish for wasting valuable time. Research is ongoing. It's not complete, so we don't have numbers and complete results and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, just times have not changed. We have not. Our attitudes have not changed. We still think along the same lines that if anybody is not doing things, they are wasting time, they're lazy, or they're selfish because, oh, she's going to take a mental health day and her workload is on us, and that makes her selfish, right? And, well, if he's taking a longer lunch, then what about us? That's a selfish move, because we can't do that, or we don't want to do that. That's setting a wrong precedent. Just, little things here and there, and if you distance yourself from a relative or from a friend or whoever because they're just kind of getting toxic, then that's also a problem, because similar reasons that you can't do that with your friend or relative, and you're being rude, and and I know that we hold on to these religious values and religious explanations for these things, but religion does not say to you cannot cut off relations, but it does not say to constantly keep putting yourself in those situations where you will get hurt. It's okay to keep a distance. वो हदीस है ना कि एक मुसलमान एक ही उससे बार बार नहीं डसा जाता. That's what it means. Keep your distance. Be careful. Be tactful in how you deal with situations. I mean, don't put yourself back in the same situation जहाँ से आपको उस तरह की situation you got hurt. And it's also about creating boundaries. जैसे हमने we all know कि Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba, he had told them कि सिर्फ 3 दफ़ा knock करो. किसी की भी अगर घर जाते हो तो 3 दफ़ा knock करो. अगर जवाब ना मिले तो just turn around, and then you don't have the right to ask them later कि मैं आया था, मैंने knock किया था, आपने दरवाज़ा क्यों नहीं खोला और आप क्यों नहीं आए. You don't ask them. And we can apply that to our lives. कि you call a person, they don't pick up, or you text a person, they don't answer, and that's it. You don't need to call them back. You don't need to ask them when you meet them, or or text them again and again, or call them over and over again. That's against Islamic ethics. That's completely not okay. And that's how boundaries are created. So, in terms of Islamic rule of law, you can easily tell somebody, if I don't pick up, please don't call me again. I'll look at your missed call and call you back. Or if you've texted me, just wait for me to text you back or call you back. Because that is what, we are told to do. That is how we're told to deal with these types of situations. And there was no beating about the bush at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. There was no, don't be open and honest with people. Most people in return didn't get upset, right? Because they knew that's how things are. But if they did, you just let them be. Yeah, you don't talk back, you don't, raise your voice, and you don't get angry, but you let them be. And it is okay. You don't cut ties, but you let them be. So Allah has told us that we can create boundaries, that we can say no, that we can avoid people, and that it's okay to put ourselves first, put our family first, to take care of our own first. The Prophet ﷺ was invited, they had come to visit, and they invited the Prophet ﷺ to their home, and the Prophet's wife, I forget which wife it was, and the Prophet asked just me, in terms of kind of asking, is the family invited, like is the wife invited? He said, yeah, just you, because they were just kind of like, okay, you know, ये उस ज़माने में यही होता था, औरतों को तो कोई ख़ास वैल्यू नहीं होती थी, और उस वक्त जब ये सब इस्लाम आया है और ये चीज़ें शुरू हुई हैं, तो उनको क्या, they were all learning, and it was the Prophet's job to teach them, right? And this was also creating a boundary, teaching them how to treat his family, and a boundary of what he will accept and what he will not accept. So he said कि अकेले तो मैं नहीं आ सकता. I don't know the exact words and the exact hadith, and the words were beautiful, just written. They were written. I should have put that hadith down here. But he gave a very strong message that if you're going to invite me for dinner, then, and you're standing in my home and you're standing with my family, then you're going to invite my family, right? So these things, and you're going to find ayahs after ayah where it's said that when you speak to them in kind words. और हम इन चीज़ों को इतना seriously नहीं लेते हैं, because we don't relate to them in everyday life. We don't think that these are for everyday life. These are not just for us, but these are for everyone, right? हमको कहा जा रहा है कि speak to everybody in kind words. तो फिर ये दूसरों को भी तो कहा जा रहा है ना. ये सब के लिए है ना. ये जो आयत हैं, ये सूरतें, ये सब के लिए है ना. And there's an let me see where that one is. And there was another one. Okay, we'll see if it comes up. So moving on from that, we'll see if we have that ayah coming up somewhere. So we have a hard time telling people when they can move on, right? When they can stop, and when we have to, that we've had enough from them. And that's one of the hardest things. Even more than like creating boundaries or saying no, sometimes that becomes the hardest thing. And you can do that in small phrases. You don't have to give them long-winded answers and get too, technical about it. You can do it in small things. You can say things like, right now I'm finding it very hard to manage, and there's a lot going on with me. Could we pick this up later? And just things like this, and then take a step back. It's okay to take a step back. They will be angry. They will be, upset with you. Just take a step back and let them figure it out on their own, what they're going to do. Because you responding constantly back and forth is not going to help them or going to help you. Now, another thing is the last thing I would say is recognizing when you need help. Recognize that you need help from other people. If you've figured out that you need to take a break and you need to do things for yourself, for your mental health, and for your mind and body, and mental health and then essentially physical health too, ask for help. Ask people who you can trust. Ask people who you know. Ask a therapist, a coach, a counselor. Go to them, sit down with them, and ask them, ye situation hai, how do I handle it? Don't worry about, they're going to think I'm selfish, they're going to think I don't care about my family, or I don't care about my friends, they're going to think this, they're going to think that. No. You need something, get it. There is nothing wrong. Again, first you have to have that courage and that inward feeling that you are worth it and you deserve this, right? Ask for help. Look inside you. That what do you feel you deserve? What do you feel you want? And then I'll give you again example from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Before he became a prophet, he had started noticing. He was noticing. बचपन से ही वो notice कर रहे थे कि क्या हो रहा है उनकी community में, society में, माशरे में, and he wasn't happy about it. Of course, he knew कि कुछ सही नहीं है, and क्या solution है? He didn't know that कि कुछ तो है, but he didn't have the solution, right? So what was he doing? There were no, I guess, psychologists at that time. So what was he doing? He used to go to, learned scholars of that time, but he wasn't getting clear answers. So what would he do? He would go up to Cave of Hira and he would meditate. He would try to relax himself. He would try to bring his mind and body together, right? He would try to make sense of everything that's happening around him. And he knew it was all wrong, but then what is the right thing, right? So he did what we try to do, what we do now also. We get help from our for our mental health and for our physical health. We try to bring it all together and try to release our tensions and release our worries and fix ourselves. And that's exactly what the Prophet did. और फिर जब उन पर वही आई, हज़रत जिब्राइल अलैहिस्सलाम आए, तो as any human would freak out and not know कि क्या हो रहा है उनके साथ, he came down and he came to his wife. Not knowing that if a demon had come to him, if a monster had come to him, or it was some kind of devil, and he came and he got help from his wife. He sought refuge or help in his wife, in the person that he was closest to, that he trusted more than anybody. So you could say that he did the selfish thing at that time, but it was the right thing to do. He came to her and he said, I am not moving from here because I don't know what's happened right now. I don't trust anybody. I don't want to go out. I don't want to see anybody. I don't know what's happened. So I'm sticking right here. I am not moving. वरना ये भी तो हो सकता था कि he could just say कि okay, फिर वही आई है, अल्लाह के फरिश्ते आए हैं, और बस ठीक है, I'm going to go and I'm going to start doing what he told me to do. But no. We said, no, I'm staying here. I'm going to stay here until this makes sense to me. Do we call him selfish? No, we don't. He sat, made it make sense. He was just like, I'm staying here. He put on his chadar or whatever around him, and he just stayed with Khadija and his kids, and he was like, I'm not going anywhere until this makes sense to me. I want my mind to be at peace with this. And what is that? Taking care of your mental health. He didn't want to start running around and, मुझे लोगों की परवाह करनी है, मुझे लोगों को सिखाना है, मुझे करना है. He didn't do that because he wanted his mind to be at peace. He cared about his mental health because अगर वो खुद सही mental health उनकी बिल्कुल fit नहीं होती, तो वो आगे लोगों की क्या help करते? Because that was his job for the rest of his life, to teach people, to explain things to people. तो शुरू में तो he had to be very, very, he had to start out very strong. And that is why he didn't get any wahi for a while, because Allah was just like, okay, sit with this. Really, really understand it. And then you'll get your next assignment. Or the first assignment, for that matter. So you see, ये सिर्फ हम जो इस सेल्फिशनेस को, इस तरह की सेल्फिशनेस को बिल्कुल वो कर देते हैं कि अपने बारे में सोचो ही नहीं, अपना ख्याल ही नहीं करना. हैप्पीनेस सिर्फ दूसरों के केयर करने में है. इट्स नॉट दैट काइंड ऑफ केयर कि अपने आप को बिल्कुल भूल जाएं. पहले अपनी केयर करें, अपनी मेंटल हेल्थ की, अपनी सिचुएशन की. मेक yourself calm and strong so that you're able to take care of other people in a proper way. 1. Second, the decisions you make for yourself have to be on some level selfish. Because again, if you're not happy, then you are not progressing in life. And then if you're not progressing in life, your family is not happy. People around you are not happy. And what good is that for anyone, whether here or in Akhirah? And then the worldly gains that come with being happy and being fulfilled and being mentally stable and physically stable, we all know those gains. I don't need to go over it. We went over it plenty. So I hope this made sense, and I hope this was helpful. And I hope this explains the benefits of being selfish sometimes, and how we can achieve our goals and still help other people and get to that highest level of happiness and the divine connection by being selfish. Have a good day, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and thank you for your time. I'll see you next time.